not killing anyone that the U.S. has been able to do in the Caribbean Sea. I think so. But I demand of that humanity, just as the Colombian people was in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and their flags are still waving in the square. I demand that humanity be in solidarity with the Caribbean. Many Latin American president is in silence. They are afraid of tariffs because they are being threatened. These presidents are being threatened like the president of Colombia. They are threatened free people. That's what mafia people do. But free people, in spite of those threats, does not remain silent and is not kneeling down. I ask of humanity maximum solidarity with the people of the Caribbean, that the Caribbean Sea that brought hurricanes of liberty, of freedom, be a space of freedom, of thought, of art. I've always thought that Italian Florence could have a new rebirth of art, but not in Italy, but in the Colombian Caribbean, where Gabriel Garcia Marquez was born. And it's not strange that they are trying to silence Petro if they at the same time are censoring the books of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I tell Mr. Trump there will be less people consuming fentanyl if they learn to read and they read Garcia Marquez. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the Colombian, the Caribbean, taught of humanity and freedom, taught of history in order to reproduce the same language and stories of the people of the Caribbean there, where they're shooting their missiles. They're shooting their missiles and censoring the books. They're on the wrong tracks because they should stop those missiles and stop censoring that Caribbean literature of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Maybe when the United States come back, because they will come back, we will come back with our arms filled with Garcia Marquez books, and I will hand them out in those streets of New York. So what we've seen is the strangling, the attempt of strangling the voice of freedom and sovereignty of Colombia and its internal pressures by their own friends, the friends of those drug trafficking leaders. They're trying to strangling those democratic reforms that the society of Colombia voted in majority in 2022. The health reform, the decrees have been strangled because judges do not like that we managed to tackle that mortality rate. Maybe they liked those 20,000 babies assassinated in Gaza, when with that same number, 21,000, were the babies of the indigenous communities who grew up added into our protection healthcare systems. They killed 20,000 there. We took care of 20,000 here. And we are going to take care of millions. Those magistrates don't like this because they don't think that the rights should be at the hands of the righteous state as the Constitution mandates, and in service of the people and life, always a right in favor of the rich. And they cause impunity around the criminal, but they are working hard in order to topple the laws that are benefiting the most vulnerable in Colombia. So what we have here is an attempt of strangling the attempts of democracy and progress and dignity of the Colombian people. Maybe some humble people over there have not realized this because they are not informing correctly, they're informing lies, and also the truth are not reaching them. But we need for this truth to reach every corner of Colombia. We need for these reforms that are not in order to benefit one person, but in order to benefit and increase the wealth of the people in general through healthcare, education, security in the elderly years, in the infant years, and for this to be a reality in Colombia. And the experience that we've had in the last months is that through the Congress of the Republic, it seems that through the control bodies of the judiciary system, that social justice and progress and opportunities for all, they're not willing to let it pass. They're trying to drown it down. They're trying to silence it. They're trying to stop it. So we need to decide between the forces of life and the forces of death. Should we let the spirits of death to be able to control the budget once again, and so that the budget just lands in a few hands of privileged ones, so that the state places its weapons against the working class and the young generations? No, we're saying enough of this now. The answer of a people is not to beg. We begged enough. The answer of a people is its own power. Its power to decide in a state, a sovereign state. If the king is not sovereign, not the Spanish king and not today's king who wants to make of Colombia a colony, then the people is sovereign. And how is that sovereignty of the people exercised? How is that people sovereignty exercised, not of the oligarchy? How, if not by the constituent power? I know that we are nearing an election of the Congress of our Republic, myself included. This Sunday, I will vote. I'm alive, and as long as I'm alive, I don't care how much I can see in a pocket. As long as I'm alive and I have the decision of the people, we'll be together so that that decision is reality in Colombia, so that that becomes part of the history of Colombia. That moment and that pages that we are writing, sometimes with worry, sometimes with joy, these pages of history that we are writing down should not be those of a turning back point to the past, but the definite steps to a new moment, a time of life and not death, a new time that we can build peace and democracy. So constituent power, a national committee of social forces to organize that collection of signatures in order to be there where the population is, in order to gather all the number of signatures that we need and multiply that by 2 or 4 in order that for us to be ready in the upcoming July, so that when the president head to the new Congress in order to give their speech, and just days before being replaced by whoever the people decide should replace me as president of Colombia, that same day, with that social committee, I will hand to the Congress of Colombia the law that needs by mandate to be summoned to the entire of Colombia, to that constituent assembly. As a common citizen, I will once again walk the streets and the squares in order to ask the entire people of Colombia in order for them to vote for their constituents of life, to do what López Pumarejo called the revolution in March. So the democratic reforms of the people and not of oligarchy, the democratic reforms of life and not of death, the democratic reforms of justice and not of tyranny. No more tyrants in Colombia. It's a time of the people. It's time of revolutions, and revolutions are of crowds and they're peaceful.